Hi everyone, just want to give you a quick overview of the final project. So we're working towards the memo report. This is a type of informal report that's often used within organizations for intra-organizational communication. But in this case, you're going to be writing a report directly to me within the organization of our class, though it should follow a lot of the same patterns as a normal report. It's due at the very end of the semester, but you can definitely finish it early if you want to. Go ahead and look at the assignment sheet and in the unit for more information on the exact due date for it. So the audience for this report is going to be me. Basically, the situation with the report says that I'm going to be developing some workshops over the summer for beginning professionals in your field to learn how to write more effectively for that field. And to that end, I want to get some information about how professionals in your field write. So you're going to be writing a memo report that is directed towards me for this purpose. In terms of your field, there's a lot of different things that you could do. This can be defined fairly broadly or fairly specifically depending on your case. So you might want to say engineering is your field, or you might want to say mechanical engineering is your field. It really is more or less up to you. What is your professional interest? Where do you want to start practicing professionally after you graduate? What is the type of work that you want to do? The more that you can declare these types of things and figure out these types of things specifically, the more you can focus your report around it. If you have any trouble deciding on what your field is, or if you have multiple different fields, just get in touch with me on Slack. We can talk through it. I'm even setting up a channel there specifically for this project. I'll discuss that at the end of this video. Finally, the format. The format is going to be following a memo format, so the usual memo headers. But there's a lot more information on the specific organization that I want you to follow in the assignment sheet itself. It basically tells you a step-by-step process of the organization, and it follows a lot of the same process and organization as a normal report. So, how are we actually going to be doing this? The first thing that we're going to be doing is some secondary research, then we'll be moving on to primary research, and finally moving on to presenting those findings in the memo report itself. Now, the reason that we're doing this is because I want your final memo report to have a lot of evidence. I want it to be well defended, well argued, well supported. So it really is important that you do some in-depth research first. So the first step that we're going to be doing is the annotated bibliography, and that's going to be due in about a week. So you need to find at least 4 sources for this. Honestly, I'd recommend that you find more than 4 sources if you can, but at least 4 sources is a good idea. At least 2 in-depth or academic sources, so these should be longer sources, give you more detailed information, and 2 could be shorter if you want them to be, but realistically the main key is that they all are credible. So don't go to a site that you don't know the author of, or that doesn't seem like it's professional, or doesn't seem like it's giving good information. Don't go for the first thing that's on the Google search for this. Try and find some good information on this. It might take a little bit more work, but it's going to give you better support for your final report. Also, in the annotated bibliography, basically what you need to do is you need to cite the source using established style. I'm not terribly particular on the style. You can use APA citations, MLA citations, Chicago, whatever you're really comfortable with. If you're not comfortable with one particular style, I'd say go ahead and use APA because it's the one I can give you the most support in using. But then after you cite the source, go ahead and summarize it. This should be a brief summary, 3 to 4 sentences. Just give readers who have not read the source a good idea of what's there, and then reflect on the source. What does the source say? What might it tell you about writing in your field? How might it help you for your final project? So basically what I want you to do with this annotated bibliography is write enough notes that you can come back to this later and use it to support you as you're writing your final memo report. So don't just write it simply for me. Write it for yourself a little bit too. Use it to take notes. Use it to help yourself as you move along. So after you've done your annotated bibliography, you're going to be moving on to some primary research in the form of an interview. I want you to all go out and find a person to interview in your field to ask them a little bit about their writing practices. So I've written a number of different questions in the actual assignment sheet. Those can act as a starting point for you. You don't have to ask those questions. They don't have to be the only questions you ask, but they hopefully, if you're struggling to figure out what to ask, they can help you start. But the key to all of this is really finding someone who might be able to tell you something specific about how professionals in your field write. So ideally, it's going to be someone working in your field. If you can't get someone working in your field, if you don't know someone, then can't contact someone through your department who's perhaps an alumnus or someone who works with internships for your department or something like that. You can also talk to a professor if that's necessary. They should know something about the writing practices in your field. They can probably give you some good information. If you really can't find anyone to ask about writing practices in your field, you can expand and just find a professional who writes a lot for their job. That will probably give you some good information still, but it's less than ideal because it's going to be moving you farther and farther away from that strong research evidence that you're going to want for the final memo report. Also, as you're preparing for this interview, start preparing now. Start trying to contact someone now because you have only a couple weeks to get this interview done. Sometimes people's schedules can be difficult, so the more time you give them, the more options you give them, the better chance you're going to be able to get a good interview. But also start using some of that secondary research that you're finding in order to support your interview questions. Come up with some of the things that you want to ask them about based upon the interesting things you're finding in the readings. So, final note is that I did create a new Slack channel, and I've invited you all to it. I'll be sending out announcements through that pretty shortly here that just asks you all to declare the field that you want to study for this project. I think that declaring that early on and making sure that you have a clear idea of what you're going to be studying and what you're going to be writing about is a good idea, and hopefully it will start you moving forward in this project. We can also continue talking about this project in this channel. If you have questions, if you want to share drafts with each other, anything else, we can use this channel to support you throughout this project. So if you have any questions, like normal, just get in touch with me. And I hope that this project gives you some interesting and valuable insight into the writing practices of your field and that acts as a nice culmination to our semester.